And hey there, hi there, ho there, and a gracious good Saturday morning to you. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, where we bring you the joy and excitement of UofL women's sports. And what an exciting week we had this week. We'll be discussing all of it for you. So we've got results from volleyball, field hockey, women's soccer games coming up, and just a whole bunch of good things going on. Pleased to have another full house with us today. All four of us in the house here. Jared Anderson was going to tell me about ants in the parking lot. So I just want to know, did you have relatives visiting or what's going on here, Jared?
No, just a little bit the nice sarcasm there, but no. There's looks like the ant population has made it out over here in the parking lot at the condos. And a little interesting. Must be a nest underground somewhere.
They will tend to do that this time of year, getting that last kind of exploration in before they get frozen out. Jeff McAdams was in his mothership last night as he and Jared both were at Volleyball Live. In Credit Union Arena there as the Cards. They didn't look too bad last night, did they, Jeff?
No, they looked pretty good, but definitely in the first two sets. The third one was a little closer, but we'll have plenty to talk about that. Yeah.
Case busy all week planning for his wife's birthday. How did all that go, Case? Did she have a good time?
She did. We made chili because she loves chili, and it was hot instead of cold, but it was fine.
Well, I think a hot chili's the way to go usually. That's the way I like it.
Yeah.
Good deal, yeah. The spaghetti or no spaghetti?
We do not do spaghetti in hers. I just did it in my dad's chili because it's more soupy, but the one she makes is pretty thick, so just go with crackers and cheese. That's
the big debate. Chili, spaghetti or no spaghetti, beans or no beans, and I like both. Thank you very much. So, and as for me, I had just a kind of a week watching stuff and observing and making sure that the Cardinals were, being fully represented on Twitter and articles and such. But a great week for Louisville athletics, certainly so. On the women's side, we won't talk about the what I've been calling the Friday night fiasco down in Atlanta for football. We're just going to let that slide right past the table. Nothing going to happen there. What we are going to happen, though, is a little scheduling and Twitter information. Keith Hoskins brings that to us each week. Does a great job on it. So, Casey, you're up.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. Today, right after the show ends here at noon, you got field hockey playing in their first road game. Like we said, they're on the road from here on out. They're taking on Wake Forest. It's on ACC Network Extra. That'll probably be a rainy game. We were checking the weather just before the show here. And as Hurricane Delta moves up through the southeast, should find its way to North Carolina there today before the end of the day, maybe during this game. Volleyball taking on Syracuse in the second game of their doubleheader tonight at 7. That one is ACC Network Extra as well. Likely will be a closer match than last night's. The third set probably a lot more indicative of the type of match these two teams will play more than the first and second from last night. Jeff will be in attendance. Jared will be in attendance.
And I'm going to try not to be in camouflage with the seats.
It seems very on brand for you to want to blend in.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I kept waiting for you to run down the steps and lead a cheer, but I never saw that.
Yeah, I wasn't doing that since I was technically in there on a media pass. Yeah. I was like, I probably shouldn't. So.
Also, who's going to join in? The 12 parents in attendance?
I had parents come over and ask me if I was going to do it. So,
well,
yeah.
There you go. So I guess they were.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, field hockey in the doubleheader against Wake Forest, playing in that second game at 2 p.m. That one's listed as Regional Sports Network, so not on ACC Network. Will be carried by Fox Sports South, I assume. And then, as has been typical for, I believe, the entire season, Monday through Wednesday will be off days for all sports. Women's soccer gets off their hiatus as they go on the road to take on Virginia. That one's at 8 p.m. on Thursday and will be on ACC Network Standard. Cross country then goes to Hoover, Alabama for the Blazer Classic, the only cross country meet they're taking part in that's not technically an ACC event. That one is, interestingly, all day on a Friday instead of a Saturday. Men's soccer heads up to Syracuse Friday as well for an 8 p.m. matchup, and football versus Notre Dame at 2:30 on Saturday. We'll see how that goes.
So certainly a full week, which we're glad to see. Certainly, we hope the best for the Cards on that. We'll be tweeting all that out to you, of course, as we learn about it and watch it. So, in case, better remind us of where they can find us on Twitter.
Did it again. This time it was because I was about to cough violently and had to just barely finish the schedule before I could move on. But like you said, Twitter accounts. I tweet as at best case scenario, and when I'm in Lynn Stadium, if you don't want to know about the soccer games, might be in your best interest to mute me for a couple of hours because I'll fire them off the whole game. Paulie tweets as at Cardinal Couple, and he'll do the same for any of the sports that he's in attendance for. Not for field hockey for the rest of the year since they are now out and about.
I suspect he would if he would go on the road with them, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's allowed. Yeah,
yeah, probably not.
Jared tweets.
Yeah, I'd have to probably put on a opposing team jersey and walk in like I own the place, and that would be kind of awkward if I went to go interview Coach Sauer afterwards. So
just pull a Jeff and walk in.
Yeah,
say you're on the list and walk right in.
Yeah,
don't you know who I am?
Sometimes that apparently works.
Well, yeah. I mean, got you high profile treatment there. Good stuff. And you were even tweeting from the seats, and that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I did. Since I was there on a media pass officially, I was like, okay, let's fire up some more tweets here. So, yeah.
Well, you didn't have to be on the edge of your seat for someone to call a timeout so that you could do your Cards chant.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. You could be a little bit more disengaged.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, there was some rumblings in the stands because Jeff wasn't running down during an opponent's timeout and leading the Cards cheer. It's under review right now with Vince Tyra and a couple of others. I think there'll be a decision.
I was waiting on some parents to take initiative there and just do it on themselves.
Yeah.
But nobody ever did.
Kind of like when your leader goes down, man. You just kind of wander about aimlessly and go, okay,
yeah.
Where is he?
Yeah.
What do we do?
I mean, that tradition was started by a parent, so,
It's up to the parents to keep it going.
That's right.
All right, Dad. He's built a good defense.
Jared tweets us at Mr. Anderson Jared. If you're looking for more photos from him, other than the two that I posted in the article today, he sent me a fair number over, so I'm sure he'll post those to his Twitter account as well as any other games that he's in attendance for. Plus positing about, Colts and Reds and other UofL athletics and everything that people want to talk about on Twitter. We just talk about things. Twitter is a place.
Yeah.
Twitter is a place that people spend time, and by people I mean me, and by time I mean way too much of it.
Yeah, pulled back a little bit on the politics there, other than during the debate. So trying to get some happy sports thoughts out there when the sports teams win and not get shut out in a series or blow a Friday night game or anything.
I think they call that cleansing the timeline, Jared. You were cleansing your timeline. Jeff tweets us at Jeff McAdams. And if you want a cleansed timeline, then maybe only follow at Card Couple Radio.
Right.
And you'll get your volleyball tweets finally.
Yeah.
All this cleaning going on. I don't even have any hand sanitizer in front of me. What's going on here? God. Cleansing. Okay. So, follow all of us, please, because we have some ideas that will enlighten you on what's going on with women's sports, and then occasionally stuff that isn't related to women's sports, but something you might want to know. So we're doing a good job on that, guys. Keep up the good work. Speaking of good work, we need to start this thing out with the volleyball team last night, who was faced in the top 10 matchup against Syracuse, and it didn't look like a top 10 Syracuse team to me out there, as the Cards took this in 3 sets, 25-15, 25-12, and then a little closer in the third one, 25-21, but still a fairly dominant performance by Louisville over a Syracuse team that had a lot of errors there, boys. A lot of errors there. Jeff, you were there as an official media attendant. Tell us what you saw.
Yeah, so the stat that really tells the story here, well, two of them really that go hand in hand, is the hitting percentage and hitting errors. Syracuse in the first two set hit negative percentage, negative .034 and negative .167. They managed to get on the positive side of that in the third one, but not high as 143. 31 errors for Syracuse in the match versus 11 for Louisville. That tells you what happened in the game. Our Louisville's block has been very good of late, with the result that we're the best blocking team in the country right now. Actually, when you look at the stats, I heard the play-by-play guy say that during the match last night, and then went to double check it because, yeah, I was gonna double check anything he said. Yeah, but and individually, Amaya Tillman tops the list in the country. Highest blocks per set in the country right now, so that's pretty impressive. And Aiko Jones at number 5, and that's what happened last night. We were monsters on the block. The Aiko and Amaya together on a couple of assisted ones, and then also one or two with I call them the Annas, right? Anna DeBeer and Anna Stevenson got together on some. That gave the direction of the game. Now, some of that was helped by the fact that our defense, our digs and passing was cleaned up a little bit from what it has been in the past as well. So that's some good news there.
The Jared, you took photos there last night as well, and the Cards came out and just basically took control of this thing right from the start, jumping out to I think 8-3, 9-3 lead, and Aiko Jones with a trio of kills in that early opening there. That had to be fun to watch early on and get some good photos of, right?
Oh yeah, it was extremely one-sided from the get-go. Those first two sets, Aiko made a pretty early statement. Makes my job a little bit easier. When one team's going off, you're like, all right, you'll just focus on it. And usually, if you find a team that's hot at that time, just focus all your time on that. And you'll usually get some good photos. Part of it is about the angles. You battle the issue of a net when it comes to volleyball. So sometimes faces and everything, jerseys will get cut off. So just got to find the right spot. But then part of what I like to get with volleyball is the reaction off of kills and blocks. As we know in the past, our volleyball team has some extremely fun reactions. I know Jeff can back me up on that, but you don't get as much facial expression when your mask covers half your face. Right. So that makes my job a little bit tougher.
So, Jeff, you got to go in earlier, kind of an exhibition contest, but for both of you being in there the first time for a actual ACC contest this season, talk about the atmosphere, talk about what you saw, what you experienced. What was it like being in there? I was watching on the ACC network, and that was about the same as any other type of view of those, except the announcers were worse. But give us an idea. What was it like?
Color was fine. Jen Hoffman did a fine job on color, but it was definitely an odd bit of an atmosphere, in that it was much quieter than usual. Much fewer people in there. Obviously, you just don't get as much noise in there. I think there was cheering, and the cheering was loud. Everybody was engaged with it. But I think the real difference maker was when the crowd quieted down, it got really quiet. The louds were still loud, but the quiets were really much more quiet than usual. You could hear a pin drop a couple of times in there. So, including, I want to call this out a little bit off topic from what you asked me, but they had a moment of silence and a bit of an honor in this match for Leslie Drury Prather and Carrie McCall. Who were killed in a car crash, that were major volleyball players, Prather was a UofL player and McCall was a Syracuse player, so thus they picked this match particularly to honor them, and shared with and with their daughters, I should say. They were going to a volleyball tournament with their daughters, so the four of them. Yeah, and it was a nice honor. They announced they've kind of announced it previously, but announced it at the event. The Leslie and Ryan Prather Fund Foundation, I guess is what the name is. Yeah, and it was great to see that. I think particularly poignant with Syracuse being there with the connection there as well.
Case, I don't know how much of you saw of it on the ACC network, but we got a tweet early on from Jeff that in our kind of group chat there, that Tori Dilfer was warming up back on the court. And I don't think she looked too bad, Case.
No, I wrote about it today. I think that even though Rachel DeMarcus was outstanding in her stead last week in Boston College, Tori Dilfer came out and I think put to rest any potential setter controversy chatter with 25 of the team's 29 assists, 4 kills on 5 attempts, 3 digs and an ace. She was out there doing what she needed to do to concrete her position.
It's certainly a good job by her as the Cards just dominated the first 2 sets. It was kind of like this wasn't the same Syracuse team that had gone and beaten Pittsburgh. They just seemed to step slow to me, Jeff. They seemed like they were sometimes confused. It seems like they were getting blocked at the line.
Felt really lackadaisical out there on their part for the first 2 sets. Again, the third set was a good competition, I think. They were able to get their block engaged, and any Lenny Gillen team is always going to be a good blocking team because he does a lot of that. But that just was non-existent in the first 2 sets. I think he had maybe like 2 blocks in the first 2 sets. Just totally unlike them. But yeah, it felt a little lackadaisical. They put it together, started putting it their play back together, and got engaged in the third set much better. I was watching that going, how did this team beat Pitt if they played like this, right? This can't be normal for this team. And I know they've got a lot of talent on that squad. So I don't know. They were just off. It didn't play well in the first 2 sets. So.
Could have been travel, could have been many number of things that threw them off a little bit, I suppose. But and they may come back today and give the Cards, a battle all the way through. But very encouraging last night, especially on the blocking standpoint of things. Talking about arena atmosphere, and I know, Jared, they wouldn't let you down on the floor last night for obvious reasons. But there was no members of the swimming team in there doing their normal thing. Were there any type of cheerleaders or pep band or anything like that in there? I never heard anything.
No, they're not letting them in at all. You're so limited on seating when you have to social distance people that there's just no room to fit them in at this point of time. They're limiting who's going to be on the court. Our PA guy, Delbert, was up like above the seats doing his duties. Some of the marketing people, the scoreboard people, a lot of them were actually sitting higher up, and they kept the sideline there that's usually pretty full, pretty much to just officials and the sports info directors. So there's no ushers, there's no photographers, no video camera crews on the court this year. I think they're trying to take every precaution they can in order to have a season. And you even saw the couple gentlemen who were there feeding the balls would wipe them down with some towels and a squirt bottle between each point. So I think they're just doing what they can to take precautions and keep everybody healthy and safe at the moment.
Yeah, even the bench was a little thinner than usual. I noticed they didn't it's pretty common to have director of ops down on the bench. Sarah was not there. I didn't see her there at all. Occasionally she misses games just because of other conflicts, but I don't know if that's. I think the Syracuse bench was similarly thin. Just looking at numbers, I didn't think they had what they're normally full component with. Bringing a director of ops with them. So. Yeah, so they're really kind of restricting, to do as much as they can on this.
Coach Danny Busboom Kelly had some post-game remarks and had some good things to say, but some reservations as well. I think you could say that the big focus that they had prepared for this week was to be better defensively, and being as they held Syracuse to a negative hitting percentage. That went pretty well, I think. The challenge is far from over, as she mentioned, though, as Syracuse is a very good team and will be much better tomorrow from what she thought. That's pretty much straight on line, didn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The Syracuse team is better than what we saw yesterday. Clearly, I mean, they have the talent, they've got the skills. They're a better put together team. They just were off, like I said. Now, I think when Coach Busboom Kelly was talking about defense, I think mostly talking about passing and digging. Again, the other part of defense is blocking, and we're the number one blocking team in the country. Again, as we talked about earlier. So I don't think it's that aspect. I think it's more the passing and digging. Alexis Hamilton was flying all over the court last night. This was like what I remember her playing in her freshman year was like, and maybe the first time I've really seen her back fully in full, Superman mode, flying around the court. So that was good to see. Good to see her get excited about that.
Does they take part again tonight on another game? I'll just take it around the table here. What are the Cards got to do to win this one tonight, Jeff?
Blocking. Keep that blocking going. It's always been a strong part of UofL volleyball. I remember back when Alicia Brown was playing, that she was an excellent blocking. I think she was second in the country at the time when she played. That's important. Keep that passing going. That passing generates your offense. That gets you in system. That gets you a good swing. And make good decisions in the hitting. We talked about a little bit. Anna DeBeers, freshman, came in. She had a lot of errors. She was what Jared saw, and what I agree with this assessment. She was hitting into the block. That's youth there a little bit, not knowing how to place around and over and through blocking quite as much. She's just going up with the power right now. She's got a lot of it, but over time she'll learn some of the finesse and the placement that some other players have.
Jared, you'll be in there tonight, I assume, taking photos again. Did you have any trouble getting those to Syracuse, by the way, or how did that go?
Oh, no trouble at all. Just same as I did with field hockey and soccer. I get some of those uploaded onto Dropbox. I send it to our UofL SID, whoever that may be for the respective sport. In this case, Nancy. Nancy was able to get over to Syracuse. I checked after the game when they had posted some stuff, and I could clearly tell that those photos made it over clearly without issue. Should be pretty easy to do again tonight. Hope it's going to be a similar route like it was last night, where the Cards just had an excellent outing, and makes my job easier shooting for the Cards, but makes it a little bit more difficult when you're shooting the opposing team and they don't have a good night.
Jeff had mentioned blocking as a key to getting a victory tonight. So you're pretty much in agreement with that. What else can you add to that?
One of the things that we did well in the first half was limit errors. At halftime, I believe we had 4 attack errors compared to Syracuse, who was in the 20s, which makes a big difference. Those are points you're not giving away for free. So it helped us take an early advantage. I think if we can continue to limit errors against Syracuse, that'll be a good start, as well as if we can knock them out of system early like we did with the first 2 sets, that'll give us a leg up.
Cards now 3-1 case. They could really help themselves out a lot with another win tonight. The guys have mentioned some really great things here to ensure a win tonight. Anything to add on those?
Yeah, I think Louisville's going to really need to stay focused in this one. We saw last night, like Jared mentioned, only 4 errors in the first 2 sets, and then 7 in the third, so more than the first 2 combined. That's a little bit of a lack of focus. It's Syracuse getting into the game a bit more. I think in tonight's match, we've talked about this is not really the match we expected Syracuse to play. Last night's wasn't, and U of L should expect the same. They're not going to be playing from a massive advantage, most likely. Syracuse is not going to be hitting themselves out of the gym, most likely, so Louisville's going to need to stay focused. to get their points where they can, to block well, as Jeff said, to not let errors get into their head, and just keep it on track when they're playing in a tighter match than last night was.
All good points, guys. I'm going to say this on. Want to see Aiko have another night like she did last night against them, and I think that if they can continue to keep Polina Shivanova in gear,
hitting 500, that's yeah, that would be nice to have again.
yeah, I mean she was really on, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And then it's good to see her playing that way because she can be so influential in turning a game around for the Cards. And how about Anna DeBeer serving, Jeff? I'll just ask you about that. The Cards had 3 aces serving last night. Anna had 2 of them. How about my freshman girl?
Yeah.
I think you mean Aiko had 2 of them.
Yeah. Aiko
I'm
had
pretty
2.
sure.
No.
I thought Anna had 2 of the 3 aces on serving. Am I incorrect
You're
on that?
incorrect. It was Aiko with 2 and Tori with 1. Tori always serves stuff, so that's not surprising.
Well, but those slap Nancy Worley upside the head then because that's what she printed. But
Yeah.
okay.
According to the stats page, I don't know.
Starts with an A. I don't know.
Yeah,
you know,
no. Anna actually, I don't think she was actually serving last night, if I remember correctly. They were mostly bringing in CC Rush to serve for her.
Yeah, who's a good server.
Yeah, she's a good server. She's
obviously a great server.
Yeah, if you don't know who CC Rush is, she's a freshman. She's out of New Albany, so she's local-ish, and yeah, she's not super tall, so she was playing DS mostly and coming in kind of as a serving specialist. So they had her coming in to serve instead of Anna. Anna's not a bad server. Just CC's probably a little better. So
There you have it. The Cards look to get their 4th win of the season. It's a 7 p.m. one on the ACC Network Extra, so you can actually watch that online and watch whatever things you want to at 7 o'clock tonight. Maybe some football, whatever else you're interested in. Something that we're all going to try to watch as soon as we can after the broadcast today is a little Louisville field hockey. The Cards are in Winston-Salem. The chances of a wet turf today as they take on the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. That one will be on the ACC Network Extra as well. And Case had the write-up on this today. I think the Cards are pretty excited about this one, a chance to kind of cement their stamp on being number 1 in ACC field hockey. But this Wake team, they've got a chance to really make some big news if they can knock off Louisville, right?
Yeah, historically, Wake has not. Historically, if we go way back, Wake leads the all-time series, 13-6, I believe it is. But in recent years, Wake has not really challenged in the ACC. I think if you were asking which team Louisville wanted to play for their first road game, after the tough opening slate that they had at home. I mean, they're 4-0, but they played 2 games against Duke and a game against North Carolina and a game against the team that knocked them out in the NCAA tournament last year in Boston College. So that was a challenge. If you had to ask which team in the ACC they would want to open the road schedule with, it would probably be Wake Forest. The only thing I would say working against them is that this is Wake's first home game, so they're going to be a little bit excited about that. Not sure what the attendance standards are in North Carolina or for Wake here, so not sure if the crowd will be a factor, but Wake doesn't have a terrible start. They lost to UNC, but most teams do. And then they split with Virginia last weekend. So it'll be an interesting match, but I am confident in Louisville getting a win today and hopefully tomorrow as well.
Jared and I were at the game Sunday, the day after our broadcast last week. Got to see the Cards take a 2-1 win over Boston College. A little bit of revenge for them knocking us out of the NCAA tournament last year. Jared, that was just a fun game all the way around, wasn't it?
Yeah, fun game. The UofL went in knowing that they could finish their home slate undefeated with a win against Boston College, as well as get that bit of revenge from last year's quarterfinal matchup against Boston College that ended up the wrong side for us. UofL looked solid once again. There's a couple spots on defense that it looks like they may have had a miscue that led to one of the goals that was also, I give the Boston College player credit, it was also a very solid shot. It was a nice little feisty matchup, especially getting down in the wire. It's 2-1. UofL's trying to hold off and hold on to the win, while Boston College is pushing forward as much as possible in hopes of getting the equalizer and forcing overtime. I thought UofL's defense held up very well. They looked like a top-notch defense as they have all season. I know Coach Sari had praised them a little bit during postgame. But it's promising going forward into the back half of your season, both undefeated, but also just knowing how solid of a team you are and how well you've been playing together.
A couple of days after that big win over Boston College, we got some really good news about a couple of the Cardinal field hockey girls. Mercedes Meche-Pastor was named the ACC Offensive Player of the Week. Also received the NFHCA Offensive Player of the Week. Mercedes, of course, the magician out there for us. Meche, as she's known as. And then Megan Snyder. Very, very integral part of that big win against Boston College. That part of that Louisville defense. She was named the ACC Defensive Player of the Week. So great awards for both of them, Jeff. Certainly nice stuff. As they, I think Snyder's job maybe goes a little bit unnoticed sometimes, but she took the leading scorer from last year when North Carolina was in here in Erin Matson and held her to 1 goal and make it even score.
Yeah, she was marking Erin Matson really well, and that's a tough assignment. And credit to her for doing that. She was also, I think, she was involved in several assists in the play as well, which is pretty impressive as well. So had one.
So both of them
in the North Carolina game. Mm-hmm.
As they get out there, and like Case had mentioned earlier, that could be a wet surface out there today. Looking at this matchup on paper, it looks like it's something like the Cards could probably win pretty easy. Case, what are some of the things you think Louisville field hockey has to do in order to get out of there with a W today?
Well, unfortunately, as we were talking about in our group text just now, there's some security issues with the back end of whoever hosts most of the ACC's and athletics sites.
Just started during our show, no doubt. Yeah.
And I mistakenly tried to refresh the field hockey page that I was on, so lost that. But I think that UofL just needs to do what they've been doing to this point. It got them wins against some really good teams. I think that they just need to continue to work out of the back. They do a lot of really good build-up play. Like Jared mentioned, some holes in the defense potentially in that game against Boston College. And we saw a few big opportunities for North Carolina go by the wayside. So there are a couple of weak spots that they'd like to shore up that are not any individual player, just some miscommunication at times. But they do work really well out of the back. They do very good build-up play. They have been more successful at converting corners this season than in seasons past, but against Boston College, they were not the most successful. So they'd like to convert those when they can get those opportunities. But I think those are the two main things they're going to need to do is convert their chances both from open play and from corners and build well out of the back.
And Jared, one thing we've noticed this year about field hockey is, in addition to Meche and the work that she does, there are a lot of different scoring options on this Louisville field hockey team.
Yeah, they're really spreading the wealth this year. It's nice to see. It's tougher to game plan against if you're an opponent. Obviously, Meche is going to be your, I guess, go-to player to feed off of. You kind of work your offense around her. But we've seen quite a few different players. I know Margot Lon scored a couple recently. Excuse me. But we've got several that are. I'm having some issues with GoCards.com to see the stats right now, which is a little weird.
It's a common problem.
Because the cert expired.
Yeah. Security certificate.
Yeah.
Ripped. It's gone.
So that's fun, but we have seen several players score recently.
Charlie Van
kinda like
Horswat
the-
has too. I know that. I saw that right
Yeah,
before
she had,
Lost Space.
we were joking about that earlier in the week with the softball
Yeah,
swing
nice
to
softball
see if
swing
she
there, yeah.
she could double up as with Holly April over there. I kind of like the idea of working the offense through Meche, just because it causes defenses to still respect the fact that she's going to have the ball at some point and focus their attention on her. And then your other offensive players then have a little bit more of wiggle room and more space that they may find an opening and either find themselves to earn a corner or just get an open shot in the semicircle there. So it's nice to see.
With Meche, something that I saw earlier this week, guys, on the ACC networks, I guess you could call it kind of morning show or whatever it is, where they have Packer and Durham on there talking about sports in the ACC. They had Meche on for about a 9-minute segment, and some very interesting things she talked to them about. First of all, they were asking her about the big sport in Argentina where she's from, and they assumed it to be field hockey, and she said no, not for the men, for the women. And they said, soccer isn't that big? She goes, no, they don't let women play soccer in Argentina, so I had to learn how to play field hockey. Kind of an interesting stat there on that. And then also, she is actually in the speed school, guys, trying to
Industrial
become an
engineering, I think.
engineer. Jeff, talk, and in case you both can kind of talk about that's not exactly taking courses like stargazing and basket weaving, is it?
No, I believe she's in the industrial engineering program. She spends a lot of time in the facility they call the garage, I think. Yeah, it's that's a non-trivial course of study. I didn't make it through. I'll say that.
We would joke that industrial engineering was where the people who didn't want to drop out of speed school but didn't like the major they were in chose to go. But that is not to discredit it at all. That was more of a joke among engineers. The industrial engineering is still a tough course of study. The speed school is not named that because it's a fast program, as is a common misconception. It's just named after a person. But industrial engineering is tough. Any speed school course content is tough, especially when you're trying to juggle it primarily online, and as everyone is now, and trying to do it with a sport. I had a tough enough time without any organized sporting activities during my studies. I'm sure that she's actually having to do a waiver for her co-op programs, which are actually required courses of in the study program. They're not just an option. So she'll have to be applying for a waiver for those so that she can be, available to practice all the time and not have work taking that out of her. But it is an extreme time commitment to play a D1 sport and try to do engineering at the same time.
Cards will play this one at noon today. They'll also take back to Kentner Stadium and play again tomorrow. This will be a 2:00 game against Wake Forest. Then they get a week off. They'll go back out on the road again and take on Virginia twice in Charlottesville on a Friday and a Saturday, 2 weeks from tomorrow, as they continue to try to keep that unbeaten streak alive. They'll end the regular season the day before Halloween on October 30th as they go to Syracuse for just one game. And then the week after that, they have the ACC tournament scheduled. It's the Field Hockey Championship, and they'll be playing this in Durham down on Duke's Field. And poor Duke this year, they've kind of fallen a tad off of it, but certainly they'll be going down there to do that. I kind of like the Cards' chances of going undefeated here, fellas, for the rest of the year. Any other thoughts on that?
There's a good shot at it, but at the same time, you have to account for how tough ACC field hockey actually is. And so far, the Cards have only played at home. They haven't gotten the chance to experience that road atmosphere yet. So I think we may see a bump or two here just because of those road matches, as well as other teams getting more chances to see film on the Cards and game plan against it. But there still is a good chance that they will go undefeated. I know none of us at the beginning of the year thought they would finished the home season 4-0 with their lineups. So they've really exceeded expectations by quite a bit so far. So who knows what they'll do?
I'll present this argument to you, and you guys can kind of weigh in on it as well. We have beaten, in my opinion, the 3 toughest teams beside us in ACC field hockey already. The rest of it's downhill sledding. Now, of course, it is on the road. But, hey, you've got the tough part out of the way now. Just right now maintaining in your final 5 games before you go to the championships. Am I making sense here on this, Jeff? I think, we got it made.
I think there's a decent argument there for that, but I also think you don't ever sleep on anybody in the ACC in this sport, right? It's you can't give up. I think there's always a chance somebody steps up and knocks. I mean, we knocked off North Carolina. I mean, the number 1 team in the country generally considered. So it's I think you got to be aware and don't get cocky,
Justine Sowry will tell you when you speak with her that discipline is very important and hand in hand with defense. She's a firm believer that a team's defense will create good offensive sets for you. Certainly the Cards have been doing a very, very good job on defense back there. Holland Barr, man, she's been incredible back in goalkeep for Louisville. We all thought that after the Aisha McFerrin era ended, we would never have a goalkeeper in there as good as her. But, hey, Holland's holding up her end of the bench here, boys,
Yeah, I said before the season started that I anticipated she might be on a short leash because of how good Sam Minrath was last year. And that may still be the case, but if she is, we don't know if that leash is going to get pulled because she's not giving it any opportunity. She's been excellent between the pipes.
I had mistakenly asked Coach Sowry if we would see any Minrath time in a post-game interview after our first win against Duke. Coach kind of came to Holland's defense there. She said, well, I don't see any reason to pull her right now. She's doing this and doing that and such. But certainly it's good to know that if anything should happen, God forbid, to Holland, we do have a good backup goalkeeper there in Sam Minrath as well, a Louisville girl to boot. So, good things for Cardinal field hockey. If you can watch this one today on the ACC Network, I highly recommend you tune it in. Should be some fun there. Somebody who is not going to be in action this week, guys, but not a bad start for them this season at all, is Louisville women's soccer. They have beaten everybody in this schedule except one team. That being a pretty good team in Florida State. I think they got some talent down there. Case, this women's soccer team has been very impressive so far.
Yeah, they've played really well. Just the loss at Florida State, the only blemish on the schedule so far, as they sit at 3-1. They played well against Boston College. I think when I sent you the quote from Coach after the game on Sunday, she was a bit more optimistic than I anticipated, and I was a little bit glad that I didn't have to sit in for a post-game interview with her, just because we all know my history with pushing the wrong buttons with Coach, and I think that she was in a bit of a worse mood than maybe her quote belied. She had a very long debrief with the coaches before she even sent that quote over. Louisville really was just ineffective in the second half. They scored their second goal to put it at 2-0, with Amina Ekic getting free at the top of the box. But Boston College had 8 of their 9 shots in the second half. Louisville only had 3 in the second half, with one of them on frame, the one that went in. So it was not great in the second half as far as offensive effectiveness goes. Louisville did manage to keep Boston College out of the net, just because they play with a really good defense, and Gabby Gonzalez has the most shutouts in the league at 3. But it definitely wasn't the domination that I expected, and we'll look for Louisville to do better against Virginia. Hopefully, Virginia is a very good team, and they're going on the road, but Louisville should be able to bounce back and play a little bit better than they did, which is weird to say about a game that they won 2-0.
Just my own impressions on this thing, and I know you were out there too, Jared, so you can go a little further on this, but I think Louisville was by far the dominator in the first half. They had a 7-1 shooting advantage over the Eagles. In the second half, the Cards were able to get the kind of insurance goal there. Ekic just, taking a deflected attempt and putting it right past their goalkeeper, 2-0. But the Eagles kind of had a good second half. They actually outshot Louisville 8-3 in the final 45 minutes. Jared, what did you see out there?
Yeah, the Cards had a game plan to start the match, and they stuck by it there in the first half. They kind of put all their confidence into it. They trusted the game plan. It worked well. I know some of the shots and the good looks that they had didn't go for them originally. I thought the Boston College keeper had a pretty solid outing there for, well, really both the entire match. They found the break off of the deflection off of Amina's shot. TK found the open net to give them the first half lead. And then the second half, they kind of went on to, I want to say, cruise control might be the best way to put it. They had a comfortable lead, especially when Amina got her goal there in the second half. And then at 2-0, sometimes you feel just comfortable enough that the other team may not come back and and score 2 goals there in the second half on you. And you get a little lackadaisical. And I think that may have been what happened in this case. And as you could see, Karen Ferguson Days was a little frustrated with what happened. I think she probably ripped into him there once the match ended. And I don't think they're going to do that again. They made a little bit, let's call it a mental error. Maybe just a lapse. Could be a better word to use. But now that they've gotten past that, I don't think it'll happen again.
And Jeff, just to kind of, this is what we got out of what Ferguson Days provided for us after the win. Case didn't actually get a chance to speak directly with her, but it was I am very proud of our team's performance today. I thought we were intentional and thoughtful on both sides of the ball, and overall it was a great team win. Well, Case read some interesting stuff into that. What do you read into that kind of nebulous statement?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit coach speak. You kind of get that a lot. When you get a win, you got to be upbeat, but you don't want to but you have some things that you see you want to clean up maybe. I think this team is playing well, and I think Ferguson Days recognizes that. There are things that need a little work. But that's true in every team all the time. So, I'm sure she recognizes that, and she obviously knows soccer a whole heck of a lot better than I do. So, I'm okay with that. A little bit of nebulous coach speak. I don't mind occasionally.
I'm very, very confident in the Cards' chances in any game because they've got Gabby Cazellas back in goalkeeper. I think, Jared, you're down on the field taking these photos and stuff. Gabby is just a chatterbox the whole time she's out there, isn't she?
That's what you expect from your goalkeeper. They're a leader on the field. They're kind of captaining your offense. Let's say quarterback is a good way to say it. As a goalkeeper, you have full view of the entire field. There's nobody behind you have to worry about, or hopefully nobody's behind you.
If there's somebody behind you, you definitely have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Right, you
I would be a bit worried.
That's bad.
But it allows you to tell the rest of your team, hey, you've got somebody that's coming up the side over here, or hey, there's too much space between you and this player here. I need you to move this direction or get closer or go help this player over here. You hear it all the time with Gabby. And I think she also has a great connection with Sarah Hernandez. They are on the same wavelength. They know what each other are thinking pretty much all the time. So they don't have to communicate with each other as much. Sarah Hernandez has been a reliable center back since the day she stepped onto UofL's campus, so that's been a benefit as well because it takes positions as many shots on goal. And Sarah Hernandez is making sure that her back line, whether it be 3, 4, 5 players, whatever defense we run that day, Sarah's keeping them intact and taking some of the pressure off of Gabby, which is nice.
one of the things I do truly miss this year is not being able to actually get down on the field for post-game interviews and talking to Gabby, because she was always so insightful and had a good sense of humor about things, and I really do miss those. I'll endeavor to see if maybe we can get some type of phone interview going with her or something like that later on in the season. Hopefully, can work that out. The Cards will play Virginia, and then a couple of days later, they will go to Virginia Tech down in Blacksburg on October the 18th for a Sunday match, and then come back home to finish the slate on the 25th, bringing in Notre Dame, and then ending the season 2 days before Halloween when they bring North Carolina into town, a Thursday night, tentatively scheduled for 8 o'clock now match. Case, let's start with you. You're our women's soccer expert here. Is too much of a stretch of imagination to think that the Cards might go through the rest of this slate here and maybe go, I'm guessing maybe 3-1?
3-1 would be nice. I think 2-2 is more likely, or maybe a draw falls in there somewhere. Notre Dame is no slouch. They're a pretty decent team this year. North Carolina, Virginia are always good, and Virginia Tech is just kind of a weird team to play. Obviously, you don't want to see them go 0-4. That would be a disaster. Something would have to go really wrong, I think. But I think 2-2 or some situation is the most likely outcome here. That game against North Carolina at home is just going to be so tough, even though it is a home game. And this road game upcoming against Virginia will be a challenge as well. Louisville has shown that they can play with the best of them. This new setup that they've got going with a 5-player back is useful. I think that it has given them a lot more defensive flexibility than they had in previous years. If somebody gets beat on the outside, it's not quite as much of a free run for them to get an opening to the middle. But Louisville has also found themselves a bit lax on defense, even playing that 5-person back. Against some of these better teams like North Carolina, they'll need to make sure they maintain their shape. Don't let teams get behind them, like Boston College was able to do a number of times on Sunday, including 5 offsides, but never able to convert. In fact, in that game, Gabby never had a save officially, and Ali Auger for Boston College only had 2 saves. It was, on paper, a much quieter game for the goalkeepers than it was on the field. They were very active, had to make a lot of out of frame plays. So I think Louisville's defense still has a couple of questions, despite their low opponent scoring totals, that some of these better teams can take advantage of. So 3-1 would be great. I could see it. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Theoretically, I mean, they could do 4-0. I don't think that's very likely, but it could happen. Louisville's playing very well, so it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the year shapes out as they move into the NCAA tournament. I think at 3-1, they've positioned themselves very well to make that tournament for sure.
So we're going to have to take this a step further. I'm firm on 3-1. Case is kind of wavering here. I think he's more likely to settle on 2-2 than 3-1. Maybe I'm just reading that into it.
Yeah, if you made me pick, I'd say 2-2.
Okay, so we were going to have him at 2-2. Let's go to Jared. He's been down there seeing a lot of this stuff going on with the Cards. Is this a 3-1 final finish for Louisville, Jared?
I don't want to say 3-1's out of the question. That would be I would say, almost remarkable finish for the back half of the year. But I'm going to have to side with Case 2-2, which when I did the looking at the season before they started, I think I had the Cards going 2-2 to finish off the second half of the season. I still think that's most likely, and I'm going to stick by it.
Jeff, can I get any respect here for 3-1, or are you going to side with the other two guys here on 2-2?
I think 3-1 is possible. I tend to think I tend to think that we're going to lose to North Carolina, and of the other 3 games, do we drop one? Yeah, I think there's a good chance of it. I would be okay with a 3-1 prediction, but I'm edging towards 2-2 from a 3-1. But yeah, I'm okay with it. The interesting thing to jump off topic a little bit off topic here, to take it as a tangent. Looking at scheduling in the ACC right now, you've got North Carolina and Florida State both sitting atop the standings at 4-0. They don't play each other this year. The ACC could conceivably end this season with 2 teams undefeated, which would be interesting. Yeah. So I don't know what you do. I guess there's tiebreakers you go to after that.
There's plenty of tiebreakers in soccer.
Yeah.
We have the most of them.
Right. Yeah. It's just an interesting prospect of if that could happen.
You guys aren't giving the Cards very many treats here for Halloween. 2-2. We're back on the air here actually on Halloween, believe it or not, the 31st. And I'll be able to brag about my 3-1 prediction coming true, and you guys can laud all the appropriate honors upon me that I so richly deserve.
We're actually missing a bit of context about 2 of Louisville's upcoming games. Virginia and North Carolina were supposed to play Thursday, and that didn't happen. That game was canceled.
Yeah.
So Virginia's sitting at 2-1-1 in conference, 4-1-1 overall, but they've played all conference games. I think the one against Virginia didn't count. Sorry, there's one on there. There's one that's not on their schedule. I think they might have played Old Dominion or something. One of their 2 games against Virginia Tech didn't count as a conference game. But yeah, so having seen them play North Carolina would have been interesting. Virginia has a really tough remaining schedule. If they try to reschedule that game against North Carolina, they'll still have to play Louisville and Florida State as well. So no free passes for them.
Yeah, you're asking about 3-1 versus 2-2. It may very well be 2-1. Because it's
if one of those, if that
because
Virginia
2020
game gets canceled or
right?
something else.
Yeah. A true factor that we sometimes forget to add in this year's rather interesting slate of potential contests and the things that can affect them. That's for sure. But one of the things that the Cards have been kind of fortunate about is that they've been getting that good defensive play. And that's why I back my 3-1. I think they'll be able to put up the defense to beat Notre Dame. And I'm going to hope and pray against North Carolina that we can pull it off. I doubt it'll happen. It should be a fun contest, though.
Yeah, that's a tough one to win, for sure.
It is. I'm being realistic. I took off my Cardinal covered glasses on that one, Jeff, just to be honest. Guys, we've had a great discussion on a lot of things today. Just kind of in closing before we get to final thoughts. As we tend to do here, we were following the WNBA all season long and following our Cardinals that were in action there. The last remainder was Angel McCoughtry. Unfortunately, she ran into Stewie and Sue, as they like to say, in Seattle, and the Las Vegas Aces took a 3-0 loss in the finals to the Storm. Angel was good in the time she played. I just was so impressed with the way she played, fellas. But man, I'll tell you what, they just didn't really do much at all against Seattle. And Brianna Stewart kind of took that one over, Jeff.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it. Obviously we know when a team goes down 2-0 in the WNBA in the playoffs, there's not a lot of statistical belief that they're going to come back and win that. So, you hate to see the Aces go down with a sweep like that. Angel McCoughtry, she's had a great career. She's still a great player. She's there with Asia Wilson. She's got some great stuff going on, but they need just a little bit more to get over that hump to finish that off, perhaps. So.
Such it is, there's always next year with the salary caps. It'll be interesting to see what both teams will be able to return.
And possibly a Sue Bird-less in WNBA, too.
Yeah,
think about it.
Very, very possible. And that would be maybe good if you're playing Seattle.
Yeah.
Other than that,
for your opponent.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's roll into some final thoughts here. Case, why don't you go ahead and start us out this week?
Sure. I'll be interested to keep following whether this is a real or fake drama between De'Erica Hamby and Asia Wilson on Twitter. There's some interesting words flying back and forth, some Gossip Girl style pictures with people having hearts broken and scratching out other players. It's very unclear whether this is a legitimate beef between the two teammates or one big joke, but it's an interesting follow on Twitter. If it strikes your fancy, go ahead and check it out.
The sixth player of the year last year, and had to sit out a little bit there at the end with a foot injury, or was that a knee injury on the Ambry? But girls will be girls, I guess. Jared, what you got for me?
I'm enjoying a 4-day weekend. Monday's a bank holiday, and then I decided to take Tuesday off. So it'd be nice, relaxing for me, as well as get to celebrate Katie's birthday with her on Monday, since I don't have to work.
There you go. Certainly anything special planned for her?
She's got school. So for me, just get my biannual, twice a year, whatever you want to call it, dentist appointment checkup, and then see if I'll trade her to dinner if she's feeling up for it.
And that's a wonderful way to celebrate a birthday, going to the dentist. Very much so. Jeff, what you got for me?
Great lineup of a couple of competitions today. Field hockey coming up here, probably just starting right now, and volleyball tonight. Check them out. With the field hockey with that RSN, it'll probably be on a Fox Sports channel. If you want to catch it afterwards, you should be able to go to the ESPN streaming site, ACC Network Extra, and pick it up there. It should be available on that streaming after the game is over. So, just a note on how you can watch that if you would like to.
Good thoughts there for sure. Certainly, we wish field hockey all the best. Final thoughts out of me. Just excited that we're still able to take on sports in some fashion. Certainly, one of the things we're seeing these days is the number of cases being reported in and around the nation and Kentucky are progressively getting higher, but the percentage rates are kind of staying below 5%, which is a good thing. But I just hope they can keep this thing going and certainly continue to perform. But it does worry me a little bit about the safety of the student athlete. But so far, it's so good. Let's hang in there and keep it rolling, guys. All right. Jeff, you're going to give us a Cards cheer? Get us out of here since you didn't perform last night?
No, I think I'll pass on that. But, yeah, check out the match tonight. Should be fun. Should be a good match.
Make sure and watch them all. And thanks for listening to another edition of the Cardinal Football Radio Hour podcast. Everybody have a great weekend.
Thanks.